Hi, welcome to the 8th episode of Stay Nerdy, My Friends. This is a much anticipated and much asked for time travel episode, and I'm going to try to explain it as simply as I possibly can, and to keep it simple and to keep myself from getting overcomplicated, doing this in one take. Now, when I say I'm doing something in one take, it doesn't mean that, I just record it once and I'm done. That just means that I have to record the entire episode in one take, because I can't edit it or anything. Whatever. Einstein said that if you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it. So, time travel. There are approximately 5 widely accepted theories of how time travel and how time itself works. There's the fixed timeline, the dynamic timeline, the multiverse, cyclical timelines, and what we really have, which is the linear timeline. A lot of people will tell you that time is an illusion. Yes and no, and I'll explain that in a different episode, but just fourth dimension is time. Time is not an illusion. But then how we interpret time is an illusion. It's really complicated. I'm not going to get into that today. Simple. Okay. I'm going to start with the simplest and the easiest to understand, which is the multiverse, which is, if you're a nerd like me, which, considering the fact that this show is called Stay Nerdy, My Friends, you probably are. If you've seen the new Star Trek movie, that's a multiverse. When Spock and Nero, and Nero's whole ship and all those people, come back in time, they affect this timeline, but it doesn't do any crazy stuff like, it's not that people aren't born or anything like that, and then it causes a paradox. We'll get to that in a second. What it does is it alters the timeline, and it splits off into its own timeline, and that is a multiverse. According to the multiverse theory, every time that you make a decision, like if someone asks you out, that decision causes 2 different spots. There's when they come up to you and they ask you out, that's the branching point. One of them is if you say yes, the other one is if you say no. Similarly, whether you choose Dr. Pepper that morning or anything like that. Like in the new Men in Black movie. Oh my god, I can't believe that I just spaced on that, and I just realized it now. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so now, that's the simplest to understand. The dynamic timeline is super frustrating. Basically, we're going to use Hitler in a lot of these examples. If you were to go back in time and kill Hitler, according to the dynamic timeline theory, when you go back in time to kill Hitler, if you succeed in killing Hitler, which, by the way, I would just like to point out that Hitler was a, dictator, and he had security forces around him. Not security forces. He had security around him at all times, so it's not like you're going to get that close to him, unless you go back in time and kill him as a baby, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So if you go back in time and you kill Hitler, you remove Hitler as a person in history, which then you no longer, since he doesn't exist anymore, he's no longer is alive for you to go back in time to kill, so you never went back in time. So he never dies. But because you never killed him, now he's alive, and now the motive for you going back in time is still there, so then you do go back in time and you kill him, and it just circles. It's a vicious circle, and that's what we call a time travel paradox. It's interesting, right? Just like, to use a different example, if you were to go back in time and kill your grandfather and stop yourself from being created, well, now you were never created, so you never traveled back in time to kill your grandfather, which means that he was never killed, which means that you do exist, which means that you did go back in time and kill your grandfather, which means that you never existed. You see, it's a paradox. It just keeps going and going and going, and then, according to this, it just rips the universe apart. Whatever. A fixed timeline is a self-writing timeline, basically. If you were to go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby, someone else grows in his place, and someone else becomes Adolf Hitler. They wouldn't be named Hitler. They would be Stuart. I don't know. Who cares? And they would still do all of the things Hitler did. That's a fixed timeline. A linear timeline has nothing to do with time travel. In fact, a linear timeline prohibits time travel because you start here, you end here. There is no flipping back and forth. Bleh. And what that is that's what we're experiencing right now, probably. It's hard to determine what we're experiencing now, like I was talking about at the beginning. A linear timeline is just point A is before point B is before point C, and point C is before point D. You understand? A cyclical timeline, however, is the same thing. It doesn't necessarily prohibit time travel, but it kind of does. What happens is you start at point A, and you progress through until you get to your death, and then that's point, let's say, Z. And then once you get to point Z, you start again at point A, and you keep going, and it keeps going forever. And you're talking about the universe is created, and then you continue along, and then the universe is blown up, and then it starts over. You understand? Super complicated, right? Okay, we're at 5 minutes and 30-something seconds, so I'll just wrap up everything that I can. Time travel is not possible with our current technology. I'm not saying it's impossible forever, but it's mathematically improbable. I can work out the math if you guys want me to, but there's no way for you guys to tell me that you want me to right now, so I'm not going to do it in this episode. If you really want me to work out the math, I can show you. It's really complicated, and we'll go over a lot of people's heads, but whatever, I'll do it if you guys want to see it. Like this video, favorite it, share it with your friends, share it with everyone that you know. Sorry that this episode was a little rough, I know, and I know that it was super complicated, but next week I'll do some nice, easy, simple stuff. I don't know, maybe I'll explain why the North Star isn't the North Star. Who knows? Whatever. Thank you for watching this episode of Stay Nerdy, my friends. Subscribe to the channel. It's a good channel, trust me, I know. Since we're at 6 minutes and 33 seconds, all I'm going to say is, stay nerdy, my friends.